10 things I learned in college. Number 1, having order and purpose results in success. That was one thing that right off the bat, I was always a pretty organized person all through high school, and that carried over very well in college. So having a schedule, having things ready for the next day, getting good sleep, making sure you exercise and you eat well and all that, really did help me to do my best. That's no joke. When you hear people talk about that, taking care of business, well, there's a process to that. So having order and purpose results in you getting through the day with a lot more higher level of success than otherwise. Number 2, success begets more success. It was something that I didn't really realize that actually until I got out of college, that you can build on your success. And it was really never explained to me, though, how that happened until I experienced it and through various ventures in my life. And when you have a success, it makes a lot of sense to build off of it because you just built a foundation that is meant to grow. Everything can be pretty much built on. And, that's at least worthwhile. And success begets more success because you get momentum in life, right? You start to get some inertia. And once you're in movement, once you are in play, it's hard to slow down. But that's a good thing because you don't really want your success to slow down. You want to keep building. So take advantage of that because it takes typically a bit of energy to get started. But once you have that momentum, you just keep it going. It's a lot easier to do that than to start over. Number 3, there's an unlimited lifetimes of learning to be had. This is something that, wow, I saw this pretty early on in college, especially when I studied in the main library. I was just like, wow, there are so many books. No one could even read a small fraction of all these in their whole lifetime. There's just no way you could read all this. You couldn't even specialize probably more in more than maybe a few professions in a lifetime because it takes a while to be proficient and to gain experience. And so there's just an unlimited amount of learning pretty much out there. And so there is no excuse to be bored in life. I mean, I actually cannot even comprehend that logic because it's not even logic. It's illogical to say that you can be bored. I mean, unless you're in a prison and you're not able to have any type of material to read or to learn from, maybe then you could say you could be bored. But even then, you can do things with your mind and you can observe your environment and you can really, there's no excuse to be bored. You can always learn from either other people or from the environment. So yeah, I mean, it's pretty impressive. If you lined up all of the different types of professions in the world, and it's kind of amazing how many different types of work and jobs and knowledge sets that are available out there or that exist. And that there's new ones that come on board all the time. There's new fields that are developed every year. And there's just no way one single person or even a small group could even keep up with that. Just lots of stuff out there. So, I mean, the world is very interesting when you start to really look. But a lot of people don't even want to look. So that to them gives them the excuse to say, oh, there's nothing to do. It's so boring. But they're not even trying to learn. Number 4, the earlier you get to know yourself, the better. Because this reduces suffering. And it's not just suffering for yourself, even though that's the big part of it. I mean, we all want to avoid pain and suffering, right? And heartache and just undesirable circumstances. But you also reduce the suffering of others. Now that's worthy right there, right? Because those people that you surround yourself with are typically people that you like to be around. Well, at least I hope so, right? And why would you want them to suffer because you're suffering? See, lots of incentives here to get to know yourself. This is a difficult one for most people because it is a bit of a challenge. I mean, this is not an easy thing. You don't just wake up one day and just know. There are some people, a very small percent of the population, that probably has a better idea at a younger age than others of what they're supposed to do or what they're into, just their interests. But what I've noticed, though, it typically is somewhere in your 30s, somewhere between 32 to 38, especially when you look at the literature, people who study this, that people start to figure that out, what they really want and who they are. It's a big question. And like I said, for most people, it takes about anywhere from a third of their life to half of their life or even more to get that figured out. And unfortunately, there are people who go their whole life and they don't really figure it out. They just kind of, maybe it's because of their personality type, but they don't really get to the heart of who they are, which is a tragedy. Okay, number 5. You have to start somewhere. Man, I kind of think I learned that really early on in my life, probably like when I was in grade school, I would imagine. But I didn't really realize it. It was just kind of more of a subconscious knowing that you have to start somewhere because things just don't start themselves. And so I noticed that like when I went to high school, that the more effort I put into things, and I had to start that effort, right? I had to, every day find a point in time to start the studying, to study what I was doing. But I noticed that. I was like, okay, wow, there's a correlation between effort and result. And that carried over greatly into college. And that's why I think it goes back to number 1, having order and purpose, was from experiencing the ability to start things, and not delay, and to reduce procrastination. That's a big one right there. Procrastination is something I learned also in college. It's a big no-no. You want to go head on with everything the best you can. You do not want to put things off because it's a bad habit for one, but avoidance, though, man, that's another large, causation of suffering, just in the human condition. So have the ability to start and to know that you have to start somewhere, or nothing will get done, nothing will get accomplished. You can't help people, you can't help yourself, you can't contribute. It's just nothing. And there's all kinds of wise words about this all throughout history. Very wise words. I think there's one of them that goes something like this. This is going to probably be very much paraphrased, but the journey of 1,000 miles starts with the first step or something. And it's true. You have to make that first step to make that long journey. Number 6, it's okay to fail. In fact, expect to fail. Failure is an indicator of future success. You have to figure out what doesn't work to know what does. Now, in writing this list, that one came, in my head. It just popped in very strong, and I wrote it down, and I'm glad I did because that's a strong one, right? And to me, it is. It's just a strong one because you have to figure it out. It's a process, and it's a beautiful process too. Even though in the moment when you're going through it and you keep on messing up, and at least you think you are, even though really what you're doing is you're just getting through the process of success to get to where you want to be. And so you have a lot of disappointments and what some people would call failures, but really they're just going through the process of success. And so it just needs to be rephrased by a lot of people. And people need to kind of get rid of that word failure when they're trying to obtain a goal, because there really is no failure in your attempt to get things figured out or to do certain things. Eventually, for most people and in most situations, you will succeed given enough time and effort and being flexible enough as well to see things in a different way. This is where taking a break and coming back to it, or talking to someone else about the problem and coming back to the problem, taking maybe a different type of technology to try to solve the problem. These are all good things. Number 7, people will think differently than you. Wow. Like even to this day, I struggle with this, even though I know this. And I've kind of realized this really more like a few days into college. When I was moving into the dorms and stuff, it was kind of settling in because I was talking to people, and people were just talking about things that were really radically different than how I thought. And I saw that also in high school, of course, but it just seemed like there was a lot more contrast because you have a larger, more diverse collection of people, at least in my college than in my high school. And so even getting out of college, those first few years out of college, it really kind of cemented as well pretty heavily that people really are different, man. People are so different, some of which is personality, but some of it is just their life experiences have kind of crafted and molded a certain way of viewing the world. Their worldview is so different, and they think differently because of that, at least in part. But don't take that personally, and that realize that there are more than one way to an end. More than one way to an end. So what that means, obviously, is that let people be themselves. Let people be their people, if that makes sense. Let people be the people that they are supposed to be. There you go. And realize that there are many ways, many options to get to the same point. And, the younger that I look back on myself, like going back, to the early days of college, I was a lot more rigid than I am now. I'm so much more open about taking ideas and being a lot more open what people say, because a lot of times people just communicate very much more differently than what you communicate. And so there's a lot of misunderstandings. But once you get over those misunderstandings, you'll typically see that they have things to offer, that there's value there. So as a lot of it is just interpreting the data, just trying to decode what people are trying to convey. Okay. Number 8. You're not always going to get along with everyone. See, I wanted to get along with everyone, and I did pretty much get along with almost everyone in high school, which was it was pretty good actually. And that was in contrast to when I was in grade school. Grade school, that's what we called it, at least. Some people call it different things, but and I mean, I'm referring to as the term grade school from like grade 1 to grade 8. I know some people call it like, I think 7th and 8th grade, maybe like junior high. I'm not sure. The people have different terms in different regions of the U.S. and of the world as well. But I mean, there were like a number of years in my grade school that there weren't any kind of conflict or any problems. Like that wasn't an issue at all. But it was kind of the last few years of my so-called grade school experience that there was more tension with a few people. Nothing horrible, nothing to the point that it was like causing me great distress. For the most part, there were a few situations that got kind of out of hand. But then things kind of got really leveled out in high school. And this is different from everyone. Some people have like the best grade school experience, and then they have a horrible high school experience. But at the same time, they might have a great college experience afterwards. There's all kinds of really weird situations that happen with people that can be unexpected. But my college experience, because I went to several different universities for various reasons, because certain universities specialize in things than the other ones did. So I kind of had to go to different places just because of what they offered, which is pretty common, right? But then I saw that there were different types of people that were more predominant, though. Like there were types of people that really differed than the majority of other people, like in the other colleges and universities. But so you kind of have to get over that. You have to just kind of know how you are, and then you try to take people the way that they want to be taken or how they should be taken. Take them in context. So you're not always going to get along with everyone, but that's okay. Number 9, debt is the modern day enslaver. Stay out of debt. And basically, in a nutshell, your future will be much more simplified and easier It's one of the worst things is to have a bill, have this debt that it hangs over you every month for years and years and years. I know people personally that it's going on a number of years, going on around 20 years or so, in fact, for some of my friends, since they've been out of college, and they still have tens of thousands of dollars in debt just from student loans. Not a good thing. And so it can really minimize the quality of your life. It can put a lot of extra stress, and it can really deprive you of joy. I mean, if you let it, first off, some people don't let it, do anything to them, but at the very minimum, it's there. At the very minimum, you have to service it, or you're going to have some problems. So just stay out of debt. And that's like a big element that frees you in your life. Like you just don't even want to go there. Some people have this family, and I hate to say lineage, or just there's a habit that is formed in families. The children see their parents do it and they think it's okay, and they pass it on to their kids, and it goes on for multi-generations. But some people just think it's completely normal to have a loan or have debts at all times. And I'm not talking about just having like a mortgage. I'm talking about always have a car payment, or for the most part have a car payment, or always have at least some credit card bill that you can't pay and you're paying interest on. Just things like that. It doesn't really make sense. I mean, if you ever stopped and just really looked at it objectively, it's ridiculous. But it's just something that gets normalized over time. So I encourage you, if you're in that situation, to really give it a hard look. And if you don't know how to get rid of that problem, seek help, because there is a lot of good information of how to get into a strategy to be debt free. A lot of people get debt free. It's a real phenomenon. It really happens. You just have to make the choice for that freedom. Otherwise, if you don't choose freedom, then for some people, the default is slavery. Number 10. And I love this one. This one is so powerful that I would dare to say that a lot of you guys probably won't even catch the fullness of this, because I know I didn't for a long time. It's only really been in the last few years that I think that I got a grasp on this. And this is something that I could probably write a whole book on. This is something that I think that a lot of people, they don't recognize the power within it. And that is good habits translate into good work ethics. Now, I'm not sure if that's the best way to say what I'm trying to say, but let me just kind of, expand upon that. The things that you get into habits doing, the things that you naturally just do because you've been doing that are of good quality and they have good, reasoning, that they're positive, they're healthy, they're balanced, right? These things naturally move into being a more productive person, right? And actually going right into number one that we talked about. Once again, it's a great, number one's awesome. Having order and purpose results in more success. This really does also help to result in success on a very consistent basis too. Because if you're in a habit, you don't have to purposely struggle with willpower. You don't have to struggle with willpower. You're just going to do it because it's your default, which is beautiful. That's why you have to be very careful about your habits. And in previous books, I've talked about this, the process of how habits unfold in your life. And let me tell you, your habits directly correlate with what you do and how you do it. And if you have really solid habits that are healthy and they make you more efficient in your life, then they're going to make you more efficient at work. And your work ethics is a very big deal. Most of us have to work to live. And we also have to have good habits. And it's not just for work, but to maintain a family and a relationship. And, not even just the relationship of our spouse, maybe, for example, but just friends or family. This is very important. Your habits can pretty much do you under if they're inappropriate for you in your life and in your environment. So this is a big one here. You definitely want to look into this, because And this is something that takes a little bit of time to change, if like to get rid of certain habits. And everybody has their like, I guess you want to call it their theory on this. Some people say it's 3 weeks. Some people say it's 30 days. Some people say it's 90 days to make a new habit. I don't know exactly. All I know is just that you consistently, for a period of time, have to use willpower and even use social pressures. Use social pressure to make you do this. Announce it on your social media that you are going to make a new habit. And of course, that's going to put some good social pressure so that it'll make it more apt to happen. So you have to use little tricks, right, to get things to change in your life, because change is something that we don't like. Most of us don't, at least everybody I know. We resist change. So what we can do is we use willpower and a combination of other techniques to get into a new habit to replace the old, inefficient, possibly very harmful habit for something that's very positive and more productive. And what we see is that it can take a while, a few weeks to a few months typically, but once you get that cemented and it's just a new thing that actually just comes about without any, major effort, that is where you're able to progress from a lot easier. You can build on that. Once again, that's another foundation. It's a beautiful thing, really, to have good habits and to have consistent schedules. All this can be built if you actually look and find a way. You have to map it out, though. It's just like in our genre here on this channel of preparedness, that you have to have a plan. Well, it's no different for life. It's no different about how you think about the world and how you go about living in the world. That's the beautiful thing, is that you can create this world in your mind, and you can create a plan to actually make that world come about, at least, in part, if not in full. I mean, it just depends on what it really is. But you can do something, and that should be worthwhile. So I hope this helps, and this was interesting on some level. These are 10 things of many things that I've learned when I went to college. And once again, some of these things I didn't fully realize until years after I got out of college. But, I just also want to say, though, that college is not for everyone. And there should not be this push for everyone to go to college. I find that to be really wrong. Some people are just not built to do that. And the problem is that young people don't know what they want. They don't know who they are typically. And so they just kind of do what people tell them. And if they just have someone that has a lot of influence in their lives, they just do it. And it can be bad. It can be wrong. It could be a lot of waste of time and resources. But for some people, it is the right thing. For some people, they have to go to college to do certain type of work, or to have a certain type of lifestyle, or to facilitate a certain type of way of thinking that is desirable or that they seek out. So thanks for checking out the video. Thanks for your support. Catch you later.